Hello, welcome to Chef Tobias Cooks, here where we have kitchen conversations with professional chefs, cooks, home cooks, bakers, and people that just can't cook. So join us every week for our kitchen conversations and learn a thing or two. And I don't burn nothing in my kitchen.
This is Barbara Berrigan-Perea with Delta Flows, a radio show by the Voice of Stockton and Restore the Delta. This is the weekly radio show where we discuss everything Delta related: the environment, water management, water quality, farming, history and culture, public events, recreation, Delta food, and the arts. Tune into Delta Flows on KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube at KXVS Radio.
My name is Josh, and you're listening to KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, 92.1 FM. Catch us live on Facebook, YouTube, and the TuneIn app.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the Voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Hi, this is Joy News on Behind the Art Scene on KXVS, the Voice of Stockton. And today my guest is Kelly Foley. He's an artist and musician who lives in Stockton. Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Joy.
So how did you get started in art?
I was born in Bakersfield, and I came here to Stockton in 1962 with my parents, and I attended Kennedy Elementary, and so I started drawing a little bit there. And then throughout elementary school and junior high, I was sort of an art student. And then I moved into, I started working in a print shop, and that really helped me increase all of my productivity. And I started making posters for rock bands in the 70s that were around town. And so that kind of got my name around as an artist. And then...
What print shop was that?
It was a long time ago. It was called ASAP Printing, and it was way out north on Hammer Ranch Center. And it was run by Jay Boothby, who's still hanging around. Hi, Jay. Hope he sees us. And he was the guy. Actually, Jay Boothby was... my first mentor that made me pay attention to the accuracy of art. Instead, I was just sort of a free-form artist, and he sat me down and said, "This is exactly how you do, printing and graphic design and stuff." And he wouldn't let me off the hook for anything. So the quality of my art kind of doubled because he made me do exact stuff. And then so that was really great. And then after that, I went into Then after that, what happened was I got into music. I ended up being in music, so I kind of put my professional art thing on hiatus until I turned 50, because I promised myself that when I was 50, that I would start up in art again. And so I'm 58 now, so I've been doing it for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So I did it from like about 5 years old to about 23, and then stopped. I was doing it. I just wasn't doing it for anybody. I was doing it for myself, and then. Then I started studying perspective, and that was another thing too. And so that changed my art. And but I haven't really done anything. I haven't belonged to any art leagues or any of that kind of stuff. I've always wanted to, but it's I just have never quite done that yet. So I'm like looking into that, and but I don't know how to go about doing that.
Well, there's one right across the street, the Stockton Art League.
With Jessica Fong.
Jessica Fong.
Well, she's a friend of mine, so that makes me feel a little more secure.
Yeah, pretty much you just pay the annual fee, the yearly fee, and what's good about them is the Stockton Art League has its own gallery, the Goodwin Gallery.
Right across the street.
Yeah, across the street. And so any of the members, Stockton Art League members, are able to show at that gallery.
Yeah. Pondl. Days ago, Rebecca Pondl?
Oh, no, Rhonda Sanders.
Oh, yeah, there was her. Okay. That's what it was, yeah.
She was the featured artist.
That's right.
On Saturday.
And she did, I thought I had that. So she did these watercolor paintings, right?
It's pastel.
Is it pastel? Yeah, I was just looking at them through the window, and I was going, wow, they're really good. Do you know her?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's the president of AAUW. the American Association of University Women, the Stockton chapter.
Yeah, I just don't come from any of that. I just don't, anyway, that's really cool. I like that kind of stuff.
But they have all different members over at the Art League, and they just showed the 1850 collective.
Those guys are great.
So they're reaching out to a lot of all different artists, younger artists, and now they're even teaching children art and have art shows with them. So.
I went to one of the children's ones, but I went to one of the, is it called Plein Air?
Oh, Plein Air?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And it was the demonstration that this woman gave, I don't know, like 3 months ago or something. It was incredible. It was really great. And that'd be something I'd be interested in getting in, like what is it, like you sit at the edge of a road or something and it's plein air painting?
It's pretty much plein air is just anything outside.
Yeah.
So, you take your sketchbook or your paints or whatever medium and you go out, you could do some pictures of the Miracle Mile, or you could go down to the, downtown to the waterfront,
wow.
Wherever you...
you could do it in pencil? I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought it was all painting.
Oh, no. Wherever you find inspiration. And actually, I just got a book about that. I need to bring that book and show you guys. If you can start off with doing a pencil sketch, then you can add ink details. You can go into watercolor, or you could do painting.
Yeah.
It's whatever medium you would like.
Yeah. So. That sounds great.
And there's whole groups. Associations of plein air artists.
Yeah, and they go out on Saturday mornings and stuff.
They're like a national thing. So you could join the plein air, society, and they have all kind of art shows.
Yeah.
I know that they've a few years ago they had a big art show at the Hagen Museum.
Yeah,
for plein air artists.
That was the first one I saw, and I said, that's where I want to go. It's into that kind of. I saw that, and they had some local people that were doing it. It was really great.
So what's your favorite subject? You brought some art with you?
Yeah, I did. The subject that I'm doing right now is see how to explain how I did that. About 8. Remember when they had Forbes magazine and they wrote that article about the most miserable city?
Right.
So I got together with some friends of mine and said, let's see if we can figure out some way to sort of counteract that on a local level. And so what we came up with was we used a bunch of women I knew around town, said, why don't we do it in a way that's almost like a fashion shoot to a certain degree, but it's not. It's not about clothes. It's just about these people in this environment. And so we took that and we took different aspects of it, at work, at play, and all these different kind of things, and we built up this big thing of all these women interacting in Stockton and different with each other, within their professional milieu that they are, relaxing at home, until it just had all of this subject matter that was built around all these people that live in this town that was the opposite of miserable. And so when I got to about 30 or 40 pieces that are all of this particular size, I started doing shows, and then working with these women that are the models. Models is not actually the accurate term for it, because that's just one aspect of what they do. We actually all work together and plan how we're going to do it, and they pick out their clothes and how they want to do it. So basically, I'm not in control of how it works. I go, what do you do? And they show me what to do, and then we do the photo shoot around it, and then I pick the stuff and do the pictures and so forth. And I'm up to about maybe 180 of those things right now, and so whenever I show like 20. We did that one show. How many did I have? Like about 20? With that one we did at the Crest Building, I had about 20 of those, and so I just pick from different ones, and so it's pretty huge at this point, and so now we're moving into group stuff, and like for instance, Sherry Fisher and Wendy Maxwell and all these people were thinking about doing some stuff about some of these women that are inside of nice architectural homes, and they're dressed at like parties, and so they would look like something from like Vanity Fair or one of those kind of like those fancy shoots that they do with have a lot of people that are dressed up nice in big architecture. You know, it's something I wanted to try, and so we're moving into that, and then.
So it starts off with a photo, and then you end up doing a sketch or painting, or?
This is, to me, this is interesting. I hope it's interesting to your viewers. One of the reasons why I started doing it is because this guy out of England named David Hockney, the famous painter David Hockney from Britain, discovered how the masters got into realism. And he did this book called Secret Knowledge, I think it's called. And so about 15 years ago, a friend of mine lent me that book, and it showed how all the religious paintings were kind of amateur looking, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the 1300s, it just got really super accurate. And it looked at, you could see how just in one day sort of everything got really good. And so he showed the secret of how it involves lenses and this thing called a camera obscura. So real fast, what that means is that somebody stands there, you have a lens that they made with glass in the 1300s, you're in a dark room, and it shows the image upside down, and then you trace over it, and then you draw it, and you get your color that way too. And so what I did is I kind of updated it because we have computers now, and I wanted to make it so that I wasn't tracing. So I take the photographs, I put it on a computer screen, turn it upside down, and follow all the camera obscura state. And then I have a piece of paper here, and I take sewing tape, a measuring tape, and I get my plot points, and I double the size of the picture, so it turns out to be this size, and then they're like this. So it's technically drawing, it's not tracing, because that was important to me. I didn't want to trace, I wanted to draw. And so that's how I do it. And and there's a lot of accuracy involved with it, because you plot every little light in the eye and dot point and stuff like that. And then that's where I was lucky that I've been drawing for so long, because then my style shows through, because I have a style that I've been building up, and then so you get the style plus the accuracy, and it kind of gets to this new thing. And so that's why it never loses interest for me. It's constantly unfolding of new technique and stuff, and it's also really fun working with all of these women. I'm getting ready to move into the men part of it, but I'll ask the question that you would probably ask here is like, why women? And so this is a very sociological answer to this, but I always go to the pains of telling about this. When I started with it, I'm a film buff. I'm really into film, and I've noticed that during the course of film and theater and stuff like that, that women tend to have, not nowadays, but back when I was growing up, women tend to have these roles and men have another role. So men only tend to display 2 or 3 characteristic traits. They're either heroic or they're, criminal or something like that. And they don't have much of a range. But women, because of the way that they function in society, have 50 or 75 different traits that they show at all times. They're little like micro behaviors, I guess they would call them, and if you're paying attention, you could see it, because they have to succeed in a man's world. I know that's not true anymore, but at the time.
It is true.
It's true. Okay. Yeah, I agree with it. And so, you know what I'm saying? You're a woman. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you have to have these subterranean behaviors and stuff, and it just makes them, if men have 3 basic behaviors and women have 60, it makes them 57 times more interesting, and that's my story. Yeah. And but I didn't make that up. There was this German director out of Germany, of course, and his name was Fassbender, and he made what was called women's films, and I saw his theory about that, and when I read about what he said, I go, that's what I'm going to do, and I've never turned back. I never have. And so people go, why don't you draw men? And I go, yeah, maybe.
and actually, talking about Rhonda Sanders with the AAUW, they just had an art show and contest for the AAUW, and it was open to Delta College students and University of the Pacific students. And I think it's just wonderful to see the range of everyone involved in that. And the guest speaker that we had, she she teaches women's history over at Delta College.
Who's that? I know who that is.
Lynn Hawley.
Right. I don't know her personally, but I've heard somebody told me about. Wow, what a coincidence! I just heard about her.
And she gave the most stirring address at the meeting. She was talking about women heroes, and how we need to see that. Women especially need to see strong women in front of them, examples. And she had gone to Wonder Woman, the movie Wonder Woman, and how empowering she thought that was. And then she was able to meet one of her heroes, is Dolores Huerta.
Oh, mine too.
Dolores, she came just recently to Delta College and spoke. And
because of that movie Dolores.
Because of the movie Dolores. And, just how it felt to be in her presence. And some of the women that she's met over the years, and she felt so privileged to be able to teach women's history.
Yeah.
And then she asked everybody, the AAUW. I think there's 175 members now in Stockton, women members, and she asked us. We were all sitting at tables, and she asked us to tell some of our stories about the strong women that we know. And then so a number of women stood up and talked about their role models and people that they felt inspired by. And then she said, and make sure to go if you have someone in your life, to go and tell them that they made a difference to you.
Yeah, that's
so.
important.
I mean, there are so many wonderful women in Stockton.
Yeah,
just amazing women, and that's something thinking about all the people that have inspired me through the years. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds of women, from teachers to church women to I was in Campfire Girls to all the different nonprofits. Most of the work is done by women.
Yeah.
And we always want change and are trying to get the men to step up. But so I'm really glad that you're involved with.
Well, I grew up in a matriarchy, right? I had my mom and I have 4 sisters, and I was the only boy, and so my dad and I were pretty spoiled, in that kind of situation. I didn't know the downside of not growing up around women. I didn't know that. All I knew was just being loved and growing up in the 60s when empowerment was coming in for teenagers and all this kind of stuff. So I just was a little kid watching all that happen to my older sisters. And so I never really knew about oppression or any of that kind of stuff. But then when I got into the world and started thinking about it and noticing how it happened to other people, I was going, wow, how lucky I am that my mom and dad, were so modern in that kind of, my dad would, if he started kind of throwing his weight around, my mom would step and go, she'd go, yeah, but it's this way. And he'd go, you're right, that's it. And it wasn't unfair. It wasn't unfair. It was the real thing. I mean, that was a really powerful lesson. And so I sort of tended, when I had friends in school, they were girls and all that kind of stuff. It's just easier to trust somebody who's real.
So I'm glad you saw examples of that.
Yeah.
When you were talking about how you go about doing your art, it made me think of murals.
Yeah.
And I think that's how they would start with a small picture and then make it grow to expand to the whole wall.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering maybe you could do some of your pieces on walls around town.
I've been thinking about that. Have you been involved in these murals downtown?
No, not recently.
No.
But.
Have you done any of them?
No.
Yeah. I studied under a mural guy when I went to Nevada City. I was living up in Lake Tahoe, and this guy was teaching me. It was fascinating. But again, about the women thing, there was like Diego Rivera, and his wife was Frida Kahlo, and he was the one that got all the glory. You know,
Sure,
that was
sure.
interesting.
So you think you could head into murals?
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, maybe. It's right now. I'm at the point to where all of these guys that I'm working with, we have this sort of informal kind of group, and all of us are sticking together, and we only plan each step that we do. And so at some point, there'll be some kind of thing to where I'll move into something that I don't know, and it might be murals.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I did, I would want to work with some friends of mine to do it, you know,
Sure,
and people that kind of know more about like large scale stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And but I would hope maybe that they might want to use my idea and let me use. These women are actually from Stockton.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so in 200 years, even though they won't be alive, they will still be women from Stockton.
So that would be wonderful to get some of that on some walls.
Yeah.
So where have you?
Could I just say one more thing? These
Sure.
are not passive women.
No,
They're not like, oh, I'm
no,
a model,
no.
draw me. They're like, Kelly, here's how we're going to do it. Here's the schedule. Here's what my mom taught me, you know. And I was like, that's right, you know, stuff like that. Because it would just, you know how it is when you see something that's done by women and you can tell the man's power behind it and it just looks fake. You know that thing?
Mm.
I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So I go, tell me what to do, you know, to a certain degree. And I know it sounds like I'm being passive, but they have all the information, you know, and all I have to do is just represent it. And it's pretty important to me. In fact, if I start doing men, I might just do it for the, if I start drawing men, I might just do it for the enjoyment of women.
So do you have any of those pictures with you?
Yeah, I got a
Let's see
you wanna
some
do that?
of these.
We
Yeah.
go to that? All right, just a moment.
So I wanted. You were talking about your style.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to develop a style. So what would you say your style is?
Oh, here's a good one to start with. Just like a real simple, just illustration, you know? How'd I get that? And so, you know, semi-realism, representative. I actually didn't study art, so I don't know the names of some of this stuff. I guess it's called real. I don't know. It's pencil graphite illustration.
Okay.
Is what
All
that
right.
is. But I do my own. I guess something that makes it a little bit different from what I understand is that I do my own photography, so it's controlled from the very beginning. But this woman taught me how to do it. So she taught me how to use a camera.
So
and
can
her
you say
name
who that is?
Yeah, that's Lisa Buckingham. Hi, Lisa.
Okay.
And she's she's a real famous. The other thing about it too, I'm 58, so when I was around was the 70s kind of scene for teenagers and stuff, but at the end of the 70s, punk rock hit, and then I was in that world, and so she comes from that, and all of us kids were like artists and skaters and, you know, kind of revolutionary kids that were fighting against, you know, all that kind of stuff. We were a lot of trouble, and she was one of the main leaders. And now she's just like a really nice, well-behaved woman that's part of the society, and, yeah.
So she's in Stockton?
She is right now. She's moving to Colorado in a couple of weeks. But everybody knows LB, Lisa Buckingham. You guys know her. She's the queen.
So many people are moving out of Stockton. Oh,
Yeah.
heavens. Okay, let's see some more.
Okay, sure. I'll do these black and white ones first. What's this one here? Oh, okay. All right. This is. Get a little uncoordinated here, but is that okay? We checked the camera beforehand, so I know that works in the frame. Okay, that is another famous Stockton person. That's Lisa Ree, the prima ballerina of our town.
There we go.
And I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of this young woman right here, but she was a student of hers, and she was at UOP. And so
So where was this?
Okay, so what I did with this one is I have a band too, and it's called Toadstool Theater, and so we played live at the Children's Theater out in North Stockton. I think it's called KOES, K-O-E-S. I think it's called,
Kudos.
Kudos, that's it, yes,
Yeah.
Kudos Children's Theater. And so in the actual picture that I took of this, the photograph, these two are there, but obviously these women weren't there or none of this. And so what I did was, for instance, this right here was a guitar player. So I just took that and turned it into a tree. These people back here, I know one of them was Dave Qualls. I remember that. I think it's me and Dave Qualls who was playing percussion, and another person who was, I can't remember who. I think it was Zach Silver. Anyway, this was the three of us back here, and so I just turned this into, Greek muses from back in the day. And that was actually pretty fun. So this one's a real old one. This is one of the first ones I did. And let's see.
So what year would you say that was?
2010.
Yeah.
And here's another one from that same show. I didn't change anything on this one though. She's from UOP too. Her name is Amanda Gisecki. She was our bassoon, our trumpet player. And that's Lisa Rhea again. I did change some of his stuff. I see how I did a little bit of this right there. A little bit of pop art stuff right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the black and white ones there. Can we take a break and talk for a minute and I'll show some more? Okay,
Sure.
I'll just leave that there.
So are you looking for more places to show your work, or?
It sounds like something that I should come to you for advice about. I'm trying to figure out, in music, for instance, you can do stuff and keep turning it over and stuff, but art is static to a certain degree. So if you show it and then you show it at the next place and stuff, it can kind of, you can be too well known real fast. People go, yeah, I've seen his stuff, So, God, I really tell my secrets today on the show. But one big secret that I have is that I try to take my name out of, except for this today, I try to take my name out of anything that I can. And I try to just be part of a scene. Mm-hmm. So if there's something like, there's a band playing today and it's like art by Kelly Foley, I go, just, take that out and I'll just have my art there. So, because sometimes it could be with the Rolling Stones. People go, I've seen them, And so I'm trying to stay in the scene, but not get overexposed. It's hard to do. It's a small town.
Yeah.
It's a big city, small town.
That's one thing. Artists, we're always trying to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Make new work, new avenues.
Yeah.
I like what your thoughts about this plein air. You could go out and do some pieces of plein air work, and that could be a show.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
5 or 6 pieces.
Yeah, I want a naive style. You know what I mean? I want a style that is done fast. Because this is not obviously. And I did one of those. The pianos, what's the name of that thing? It's like Sylvia Qual.
The music to our ears.
Yeah, and so they had that real brilliant one that was done by the UOP, but I don't know if you saw it, but it was like almost like a road warrior kind of piano. It was awesome. But what I did was the complete opposite of that, and I just took some watercolors and just did the most kind of naive. Mm-hmm. I just did like a man and a woman in Stockton in the 1800s on bicycles when the wind's blowing, and I just saw some picture one time of people riding bikes and they had handkerchiefs over their faces in a windstorm, and I go, that's it, that's what I want to do. And I didn't want to go to town doing all the detail because I was painting and doing it on wood and all this stuff I wasn't used to. So, but they gave me the boards from the piano, and I did it. It came out all right. I like it. So some of my friends like it, but other people were like, hey, you don't do that style. And I was like, oh, and so, I don't mind changing styles, but sometimes not everybody's going to like it, and you have to learn how to deal with that.
Oh, yeah. Well,
That's actually, as an artist, that's one of the main things that I figured out in my life is just, it sounds mean to say to not care about what people think, to not care about it. That sounds kind of emotionally violent, but there's a way to you can go, hey, that's an interesting opinion, but still carry on with what you do.
Sure.
You know? I just don't like to do the I don't care what you think thing, because it doesn't sound right. People care about what people think, I think, to a certain degree. Now, the other thing about it, too, I might just be the kind of person that's an artist that is soft-hearted or something, and other artists are like, I don't care, and I believe that, you know. But it's hard for me to make... I just am not that kind of person. I care about what people think. I have friends. I believe in love. I'm kind of, I'm in the wrong time.
I must be in the wrong time too. You can't care more about what other people think than doing what you need to do. So I mean, you got to be true to yourself.
Wow, that was well said.
So
how come you didn't tell me that years ago? No, that's a good. That's
something I've figured out. But
that's true. It's like the same thing they say about having an ego, and I've heard somebody say you have to have enough of an ego to put the fork in your mouth to eat, not put it in somebody else. And I was going, okay, that sounds right, but you don't have to have so much of an ego to where you're just kicking stuff over and go, I'm the best, because it doesn't work in a scene. Because
I think those other artists, I don't know that they're caring what they're not thinking, oh, what is Joy Neas going to think about what I'm doing? So I mean, we each have to.
I've heard people say that.
Really,
what about you?
Really work with what we're doing, and be true to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, the private conversations between artists, they're not really polite,
Yeah.
Nobody is, nobody. In private conversations, people are who they are, And so this is me talking as a person that's trying to put myself across as an artist. But when I'm hanging out with my friends, there's a lot of swear words. There's a lot of putting other people down. It's for real. It's just like the way everybody is all the time about everything. Sorry, fans.
So,
but it's behind the art scene. So
yes,
that's
we're behind the art scene.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about your music?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. The music is the thing that made the art happen. Because I was doing art before, and it was just, for bands, and it was posters and all this kind of stuff, and I was just doing some surrealist stuff. But when the music happened, I got in this band that turned out, we didn't know this was going to happen, but we got in this band that really exploded in town called Broken Toys. I was in this band, and so I didn't have time to do anything but that, and that was for like 7 or 8 years. But during all that time, we got to go up to that level, like opening for, Echo and the Bunnymen and the Church and all these famous bands, and we were on this high level, club level. And so when we got a taste of that, we got to also see what was happening in, record companies and these kind of things. And you got to go to these places and have meetings with these people, and there'd be like, I was always looking at the album covers, and I was going, who did that? And so I was thinking, it's just all tied in. It's all tied in. So what happened with me with music was I started when I was a kid and in the punk rock world, and we were artists, and so we started in this thing called, it was called The Mixers, and it was me and my friend Jeff Clark, and then we went on to something later that became called the Torn Boys, and that was me and Jeff Clark and this guy named Grant Phillips, who the whole world knows because he was Grant Lee Buffalo and he's Grant Lee Phillips. And so he was like our little brother, and we were in a band. Also with Duncan Atkinson too, and so we did that for a while. And then after those guys moved to LA to become Shiva Burlesque, I stayed in Stockton and started with Broken Toys, and then I was in Broken Toys for all those years. Then after Broken Toys broke up, I moved into the mental health area, and I was doing recreational therapy, which was dance, because that's what I was doing at UOP. And it was, so I transferred to the mental health world and became an art and music and dance, technically therapist, but that wasn't what, I didn't have the degree to become a therapist, but anyway, that world. And then after that, I moved into clinical psychology, and I did that for 16 years. And that was I didn't do anything. I didn't do any music or any art. All I did was just work with schizophrenics that murdered people and came out of Napa State Hospital, and I interviewed them and I did placement, and I did that for 16 years. And so that was an entire art unto itself, you know, and it took all the energy and everything that I had, because it was, you know, you're sitting in rooms with people that have murdered people, you know, and you have to do what you're doing right now, going, okay, you know. and it was soul killing, but I was really good at it, and that's why I did it for 16 years, and nobody even came close at this job, at this one place I was at. The only other person that worked there as long as I did was like maybe 6 years or something, and I just was, you know. But then when that ended, was about the time that I turned 50, and so I said, okay, I made a promise to myself that I'm gonna do that, and so got back into art and got back into music. And in between that time, I did have this thing called Toadstool Theater, me and my friend Zach, and so I kind of worked on that, but we didn't play live very much or anything. So, but yeah, I've done a lot of music. I named like 5 bands that I was in right now, but I've been in about 25 bands. But those were the ones that were like, you know, on the timeline.
So now you, like I saw you over at In Season. You were playing.
Me and Anthony. Yeah.
So
I just work, you know, Anthony is like Anthony Kesey. He's just, he's like like a hero, like a heroic figure. He's a guy. Yeah, it's weird. There's people that'll do stuff for people and they don't want anything in return. And yeah, he's one of those guys, you know? And so when I came into town, I was living in Nevada City, and I came here and I was just broke, poor. I couldn't get a job or anything. And he says, come and play with me and we'll get you some money, and then you can have just enough money to eat during the week and stuff. And then as I started proving myself that somebody was valuable to him as a singer, he's going, just stick with me and we'll get you there. And then he goes, now I'm going to teach you how to have your own band. And then he like said to Raul Cadena, who's this world-class guitar player, who's Tony's guitar player, he said, you know, you and Raul should do some stuff. So me and Raul do some stuff, you and Raul do some stuff, and then we'll just like spread ourselves out, and then all of us will make money, and we don't have to go get a job working an entire store. And it hasn't quite got to that point yet, but I've been playing enough to where people go, hey, will you come and do this winery? And then that's the other thing that happened too, was that, and I'm sure you've run into this in the art scene, is that 7 years ago, Lodi was just this town over there, and now it's like boom town, 85 wineries, rich people coming from all over the world to open up their places, people from France and Israel and, you know, Rio Vista, are all coming here and opening up these wineries, and they just don't have any entertainment, you know? And so they're either gonna like hire Celine Dion or get somebody, you know, local, and so they tend toward the local thing, and so it's a good future, all you musicians out there. But the one thing I will say to you musicians out there is if you do that, make sure that you play music that people are drinking wine want to hear and not what you want to hear, because they don't want to hear what you want to hear. This is another song I wrote. No.
So you
that's a mean thing to say, but you musicians know what I mean.
You were talking, said something about Billy the Kid.
Yes, Billy the Kid is the big thing that I got going right now. I'm working with, God, I hope people watch this, because I'm doing some good plugging.
All right.
Okay, let's see if I can get the names right. Shakara Alvarez, who is the singer in the Polyester Wags. Stephanie Flores, who's just a beautiful, fantastic woman around town, not just, is. And a real power player. Erin Odessa, who we all know from Vodessa, another just mother to us all, man. And Courtney Marriott, who I don't really know that well, but has turned out to be this amazing woman. Those 4 people are in Billy the Kid's gang, and Shakara, or Chocolate as we call her, is Billy the Kid. So it's an all-woman thing of the Billy the Kid gang. And then we have Stephen Littleton, who's from Trucker Dad, another musician, and he's playing Pat Garrett. And we're basically just doing the story of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, about how, Billy is trying to live his life with his gang and everything like that, but the governor of Mexico and the electorate, as they were called, just want him out because he's being too free in this place to where they're trying to build all these railroads and stuff, and so they're trying to drive him into Mexico. And and in a way, it sort of has, it's a little bit smacks of like what's happening today in politics a little bit, And so we're using it for that a little bit. And but generally, the reason why I personally wanted to do it was because I draw these things that have all this kind of, surrealist kind of stuff in it. And I just wanted something that was American, a lot of sky, not a lot of fuss about the way people dressed or anything, that kind of thing. And so I did it with Billy. And then when I ran it past those guys, they said, we will do it right now,
So this is a play, or what is it exactly?
Okay, so this is where I'm going to start to look insane. So if there's like an insane button on the, where it goes, he's insane, put that up. When I was being a judge at the Nevada City Film Festival, which is a really great film festival, I would see 500, every year I'd see 500 movies, and I'd have to sit and just go, oh my God, oh no, not another one, But there were some kids, I'll call them, that were using this phone and making movies, and they were good. They were really good, and phones are good now, So what we're doing is using a real high-class camera phone. It's a real expensive one. This woman named Kate Garrett, like, how you doing, Kate? And it's her first time too, but she's doing brilliantly. And she's taking the photographs. I'm drawing them, so it's going to be a thing to where when we present it, it's going to be almost like a PBS thing. So it would be like, let's say that. Okay, it's advertised, and you can go see it. It's called Billy the Kid. So people show up, and they sit in this room, and there'll probably be like a screen, but there'll also be a stage. So on the screen, almost like PBS, you'll see these stills of the stuff that we did. There'll be some narration going. My drawings will be kind of around the room, and then at certain points, or probably at the end, Shakara, who's this really amazing musician, is going to play the music that's from it. And then there's going to be scenes that will be done that would be, I don't know, a minute and a half long, and then mostly it would just be, just slides going across, kind of showing it, and then there would be like another scene that would be about 30 seconds long. So it's like a collage, maybe a collage movie.
Wow.
I've seen it done before. I saw somebody do that, and I go, oh man, so great. It just had everything. It had photo representation, original art, movies, and performance all at the same time. And they just did it in this little space in San Francisco, and it was this burlesque thing that I saw, and I just went, oh man, that's the way. It was the future,
So when do you think this is going to
It takes a long time to do these drawings.
Yes.
I'm halfway through one. I feel like, I don't know if I can show it, but I do have, maybe I shouldn't.
So would this be next year, or
No,
by the end of the year?
September, maybe. Because I only have to do like about eight of them, and then there's going to be 200 photographs. We already have 200, but so, for instance, we did the first one that we did. We went out to this radio station that's just kind of out in the country, out on the south side here, and there was just all green grass and everything, so it looked like the 1800s. So we just stuck them in there and just, and it came out perfect. Next week we're going to Valley Springs, where we're going to pull off a bank robbery, and with those old buildings. There's going to be a confrontation between Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett. There's going to be like a barroom saloon kind of thing, which is going to be the biggest production. We're going to use like these like burlesque dancers and the gang of Billy the Kid, and maybe it might be inside like the Whiskey Barrel or something. We're going to probably do it in a few different places, but it's also going to be sort of like a because most of this takes place in Mexico, or it's about the Mexican kind of culture a little bit, is that we're going to use sort of like some religious stuff, or like Santeria kind of stuff, as some animation that's going to happen for a minute or two. Just because I've seen all of the Billy the Kid movies, and they never do that. They never show the religious side of the Mexican culture, you know. And so that was something that I really wanted to do. So we're going to do a little bit of that. I probably should stop talking about that. I overshot the whole thing, but we are doing it, you know. So I don't feel bad about saying something and then it won't be done, you know, because I've done that a lot.
You should go over
Thank you for asking about that.
Sure. You should go over to St. Gertrude's Church. They just painted
That's on the south side, right?
Yeah, it's on Main Street, east of Wilson Way. It's right across from Miracle on Main. There's a religious bookstore there. And,
I know that place.
And so on the backside, they have a new mural of the Virgin of Guadalupe.
Yeah, so we need that stuff. Yeah. And it doesn't look real modern. It looks like an old one, huh? Yeah.
So
we can get away with that kind of stuff.
So it's pretty nice.
But, you know, I'm sorry, I guess one of the main punchlines about it is that Billy the Kid, when it comes all the way down to what's up with it, he's just going to talk about how they just don't want us to be so free, which is a line from a Bob Dylan song about Billy the Kid. And so that's kind of you know, it's not a very complicated plot. It's just these people are trying to get him to get out of here because he's too free, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, I find that to be an interesting concept in the modern world. Problem with me, though, and most of my friends say this, is that I'm not very political, and this is not a good time to not be political. You know, I'm just not. So this is the best I can do to try to be political. You know, this is what I got, is that thing.
That's okay.
I should be more political. But I did work for 20 years in the California mental health system and the prison system. Mm-hmm. So I may not be political, but I've sat right in its face, right at the table, and looked it right in the eyes, you know, and that's why I'm not political, you know, because I've seen the games played, and I don't want any part of that, man.
You were talking about the art therapy.
Mm-hmm. That was great.
That sounds really interesting.
It was great. I came out of UOP, I was doing dance, and so dance therapy was the larger build of it was recreational therapy. Recreational therapy covered all of those things. But the art therapy is very specific, and I would never claim to be an art therapist, because anybody who is an art therapist, and I don't have a degree in it, would be really insulted. So I just use that word because that's what people say, but I know that I'm not. But we were doing it, and we were, you know, in 1212 North California. I was working in crisis. People would come in. They had had a complete mental breakdown 24 hours before, and now they're sitting in a room with me and my friend Zach Silver and a couple other people from UOP, and we had guitars and, you know, percussion instruments or paints and stuff like that, and we would just say, time to get to it, and they would go, and we go, no, and we would just, you know, the main thing about it is if somebody says, I don't feel like it, we would go, well, let's find a way to feel like it, you know, and it almost worked every time. And we were pretty good, actually, because we would do it too. We wouldn't just walk around behind going, oh, that's good. And so we would get right down there with them and go, okay, I did that, you did this. And so it was all of it ties into what the idea that I like that's happening in Stockton too, is like individuals versus a scene, like a whole scene, you know? And individuals are doing great in the thing that they're doing, but it seems to me 1850 Collective, Good Stock, Goodwin Gallery, all it seems like the scenes are the things that are putting across the big work, you know? And so there's this guy named Brian Eno, who's a big hero of mine, and I heard him talk about this thing that's called scenius, which I thought was interesting. And so his deal was, he said that his favorite art was Russian art from the turn of the century, like that pre-communist kind of abstract art that they had, Kandinsky and all those guys. And so he thought he knew about it, but a lot about it. But then he went to Russia one time, and he found out that there was 300 major artists that he had never heard, major art, like Dali level artists in Russia that he had never heard of. And they were all happening in that one scene from like 1899 to 1921 or something. And it was just this entire world of just mind-blowing art. And it was a scene. It wasn't just Kandinsky, who we know. It was all the people that influenced Kandinsky and everything. And so he came up with this term called scenius, which means there's a genius that's built into people that occupy a scene. And so I'm just taking that, you know. And I do notice that. I notice that the quality of the art that comes around, the stuff you do, you and Frank, the stuff that that Goodstock does, it's opportunity on a playing field in real time. It's almost like this equation. You know, it's like some mathematical equation. Here's the opportunity, here's the field, and here's time. Put those things together, what are you going to do? You know, you got 2 hours or 3 months or whatever it is, you know. It's a scene. Anyway, God, that was so boring. I'm sorry.
So the art splash is coming up. So hopefully you can get involved in that again.
Yeah. How's that going?
Good.
So you guys do the Crest building?
Yeah.
And then the building that's upstairs, the black or what's it called?
Yeah, we need to. I have to really look over the venues for this year, but I'm sure we'll have the Cross again. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you like that place? It was upstairs.
Upstairs.
It.
It's the second floor of the Elks building. It's right above the subway.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
And they got good light and good wall to hang over.
Yeah.
That was nice of those people to offer that. Well, you know, the thing I see about what you guys got going is that, just like most things in history, is that you're 5 years too early. You know what I mean? Because downtown it's happening now, but in 5 years it's always been happening. It'll seem like that.
Yeah.
And so you guys would just be like this gallery that would just be flooded if it was 5 years from now.
Right.
But you had the problem of being the people that said, let's make this art scene happen. I know about it, but yeah, you're well respected. It's just not above, you know, it's just not above ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We're little by little. And I just heard about something. This is mind-blowing to me. It's called Hatch. Have you heard about that? Oh, my God. So this is a building. They're getting further and further east on Weber Avenue. I think it's Weber and Aurora. So it's almost to the Cabral station.
Yeah, to the tracks almost, yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to make that a maker space, and it's a live-work thing, so you can have a studio. I think you can live there. You can go and make stuff there. And so they're trying to get this off the ground. I'm going, oh, wow. So,
are you going to be part of it?
I was thinking about it because, you know, every time I go to a city, those are the kind of places I look for.
Yeah.
And
I like that maker stuff. I'm only two-dimensional. So when people are making pottery like Tara Hansen or something, I was like, who are you? How do you do that? It's unbelievable to me.
Because I myself do crochet. I do.
That's right. Oh, my God.
So I do a lot of sculptural things, you know, not with clay, but I would love to get into making art quilts.
Yeah.
So using, you know, various fabrics and yarns and doing that kind of thing.
People work with looms or any of that kind of stuff? Is that what it's called? Looms?
The
big
weaving.
Yeah,
weaving.
Have you done that?
No,
really?
Not really.
Have you dyed the fabric or anything?
I went to a class called shibori. It's a Japanese way of dyeing. Yeah. So I took that class over in San Rafael. I just took a paper making class. So now how to make your own paper.
Yeah.
That was at the Teen Center. So, you know, there's all kind of opportunities around here.
Oh, one thing I'd like to plug, just because she's a dear friend of mine, and a new model or a new person that sits for me is I'd like to talk about Polish Hill's bookmaking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What is that called?
The Right Place.
Yeah, The Right Place. Oh.
Yes, yes.
Man, I've just been following them on Facebook, but they're getting it done. It's really fantastic. So all of that stuff is what I'm talking about, you know. You have the paper making here, the book making here, The Right Place here. Here's the textile stuff, and it's all a scene, you know. And so when I was growing up in the 70s, okay, old man talk. Here we go. And I was an artist. My dad, who was a construction guy, thought it was really great. Both my parents were very artistic people, but very common sense people too. And so they were going, it's great you're going to be an artist, but make sure that you have a real job. And they weren't any meaner than or anybody else. They just spoke the way that everybody else spoke because that's the way it was, you know. And so I was going, well, maybe I'll work for Walt Disney or, you know, these kind of dreams that you have, you know. But when I was 22, you start hearing about Silicon Valley, right? And they started talking about artists differently. They called them creatives. And all of a sudden, all these brainiacs would be sitting at this table talking about, well, we're going to innovate and stuff like that. And then they turned to the artist guy and what do you think, R. Crumb? Or, hey, man, I think this or whatever, you know, and they always take his advice because art is powerful. This is interesting to me. Throughout all civilization, they don't know any of the political people that were, you know, 250,000 years ago. They don't know any of them, but they got the art. They've got the art and they got the songs. But they don't know who was, you know, the senator of Macedonia in, you know, 70,000 BC or whatever. They don't know.
You know, what I found interesting when Dolores Huerta, when she spoke, actually after the screening of the film, Dolores, she couldn't stay. She had to go back to Los Angeles. But her son was there and one of her friends was there, and they were talking about how important it is that there's been such a special place for artists in that movement, making the posters, making the door hangers, making films, making doing the songs. So, you know, the arts would help us, you know, translate to people and reach people. So, you know, right now, all the political movements, with Cleveland School Remembers, they're making a lot of posters to try to reach people, you know, about gun violence.
Who's doing that?
Cleveland School Remembers.
Is the name of an organization?
Yes.
Here in town?
Yes. So it was started by a group of teachers that was, they were at Cleveland School when the shooting happened.
I remember when that happened, yeah.
And they said, you know, no more. We need to stop the violence. And they've been working on this, you know, for, I think, about 5 years to try to change gun laws and try to appeal to, you know, common sense people, you know, to handle your guns properly.
Yeah.
So.
That's great. I didn't know about that. Yeah, I started to do some more art here. This is another artist, Melody Sidhu. She does the, what's that called? Henna.
Oh,
yeah, she's always on Pacific Avenue. You guys may know her.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, okay, anyway, she's, and this is Marlena Dietrich. Her family is from India, so she has the traditional dress there, and she also plays sitar, and she studies under the big masters here in town. And so that was, I just happened to have a poster of that, and she had those clothes on, and so I said, let's do this one. And here, I got a couple more. I know our time is going away, so I'll move into the color stuff here. Is that okay? All right. These are recent ones that I've done, I think. I hope. Let's see. Oh, here's... Wow, Lisa Ree. She is really featuring today.
Oh, yes. Now, you showed some of your work over at Mile Wine.
This was one of them.
Okay.
Yeah, well, this was one of them, yeah. So this is sort of the surrealism aspect of what I do, you know. So to any artists that are listening and maybe hip to this kind of stuff, obviously this is influenced by Pre-Raphaelite. Holman and those cats from England that were trying to do that kind of realism stuff, but also hearkening back to the Renaissance and Avalon and all of that sort of stuff. So all of that kind of style with the real British blue eyes and all that kind of stuff. That's I intentionally made it so it would look like that. And then this is like a modern kind of style here, an Eastern style there, some surrealism that I did by putting people into the foliage back there.
I saw that. There's a little face back there.
Two of them. There's her and him. Yeah. And and her feet. I forgot about that. This is the hand of my friend Kate, who is the photographer for the Billy the Kid. Man, I tell you, Kate, I'm so proud of her. She started her art career, like, I don't know how old she's in her 40s, I think, or something. And she just said, I'm going to do this. And she's been going around the world, man, and she just takes reams of photographs of like Mexican pueblos, and she just has this whole catalog. So when we were doing the Billy the Kid stuff and we'd be talking online, I'd go, I'm kind of looking for this, and she'd send me something like this, and I go, yes, exactly like this. She goes, this is from Porta Babega, and and I was like, oh, man. And she's just going deep. She's just cataloging the world by art. So I'm so proud of Kate. She's so great, and she's really easy to work with, man. You would think that somebody that's just starting out would be really insecure, and she's going, no, let's do this. I was like,
So she's right here in Stockton?
No, she comes from Stockton. I don't know if she actually comes from Stockton, but she lived here for a long time. And she was just a friend of mine that used to work at the Blackwater back in the day, and she's like a mother and all this kind of stuff, but now she's just like full-on photographer. But she lives in Dublin, California, not Ireland. And she's just having the greatest time. And she had never met these people that were in the Billy the Kid thing, and so, sorry, can you grab that for me? She, and they just fell in love with her on the first day. All of them met, it was really cool. She's so wonderful. And here we have, it's the wrong side of that one. This is one where I redid, yeah, here we go. This is trying out some like pastel stuff and trying to do some stuff at night. So a little bit experimental. And how much more time we got? I got one more.
Go ahead.
Okay for that? Okay. So I brought these. This is Teresa Akins, by the way, is her name. And that's in Lodi at some, like one of those fairs that happen there in Lodi. I don't know if this works. Can you help me out with that? Thank you. And this is one of my more experimental ones that I'm trying here. And this one, what I'm trying to do with this one, and it worked out pretty good, is I drew the whole thing, and then I put it on Photoshop, and I made these realistic eyes that went in there, and lips, and I just put them right over the top of it, so when you see the thing, it looks like this, but the eyes almost look like they're glass. It's really cool. I'd have to show it on the internet, but this is sort of like the flat for it. So that's another new style that I'm trying out. I think I've seen other people do it, but just trying to get things that are about like 95% finished and leave big parts of it done, and then take a photograph of it, put it on Photoshop, and then just spend hours making really realistic eye right there and lips. And it looks so cool. I was going, this is going to work. Anyway, someday I'm going to be making prints of that, so I'm moving into the print world. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what a lot of artists do, to be able to keep how they are able to keep selling their work.
Yeah. Took me a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
Even the Warhol, Andy Warhol, is my big inspiration for this, because I watched all of those documentaries about him, and they said his thing was repetition. Just take Elizabeth Taylor, there's a picture of her, now make it a little bit more green, make it a little bit more this, but just keep that same thing and just keep putting colors on it, and it'll sell. And I was going, okay, but I wanted to do it my way. I wanted to do it my way, so I figured I'll draw these completely and then do just these things are the reproducible things.
I like the background.
Yeah, that's fun.
Interesting.
Colored pencil and felt pen. I'm working in oils now too. I talk a lot.
So
I didn't know I did.
I hope you can come to the Art Splash, show some of your work, and where do you think the next place you'll have a show?
Thank you for reminding me of that. Oh, I'm such a bad promoter. Woodbridge Uncorked, the wonderful Heather Leah. She used to have this place right here, and she moved out to Woodbridge. She's got her own winery there, I guess it's called. Has her own wine, and she's having her first art show there, and I am in it, so I'm very excited about that. And later that night, there's like jazz. Mine's in the daytime, April 7th, 12 to 5. And then that night is like some fancy jazz stuff too.
So that's in Woodbridge?
Woodbridge, yeah, right there on Lower Sacramento Road. Okay. Like Woodbridge is only like this big, so yeah.
Like a couple blocks.
Yeah. So I'm doing that, and what else? There's some other stuff coming up. It's mostly music stuff though, I think.
Are you going to be downtown? They're having they moved the stock market downtown to the Martin Luther King Plaza.
That's right. I did one show a few months ago. I had my art. It was nice too. It was really beautiful being outside. So mostly what I'm trying to do with Goodstock, with Amy and Ann, is I'm a singer in this big David Bowie tribute project thing, and it's like the people from Idaho and the Bay Area. It's this real big kind of like orchestra of people, and we were going to try to do it on March 31st, but it's too much stuff crowded us out. So sometime this year, we're trying to make it so that we can all work together and just put on this really awesome, like not like a rock concert, but like a Broadway play Bowie kind of thing. And so we're trying to work with Amy and Ann, who are just brilliant at, they're just brilliant at promoting. But they should get paid, and all that kind of stuff. And that's the other thing about the art scene too, is that eventually we should start getting paid. I don't know how it's going to work out, but I think a lot of us has been showing what we can do, and I know that the Trump administration wiped out the NEA, so we're going to have to figure out another way to be getting paid. But,
well, hopefully he'll be leaving us soon, so then we can get back to our business.
Even with that, though, the NEA is not going to be able to take care of it. Here's what I thought was one of the most interesting things that's ever happened, is that in 2008, when the whole world, the market crashed, so many people became artists. They just said, I'm not going to Europe every year anymore. I'm just going to, start doing pottery. And they haven't turned back. And now those people are artists, and they're good. And so even though it makes kind of a glut in terms of product and stuff like that, that's okay. That's okay,
You can never have too much art. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's about time to wrap up the show.
But I have 2 more hours of stuff.
I really appreciate hearing about all the way that you go about doing your work, all the things you've been involved in.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It was fun.
It's been wonderful.
I'm glad we got to talk about your thing, too.
Okay. So join us next week on Behind the Art Scene, KXVS, the voice of Stockton.